How do you find the will to fight back against a world that wants to keep you sedated, average, and stuck in place? Join us for the tools and strategies you need to create a life of abundance, discipline, and high achievement. This is the Tactical Empire with Jeff Smith.
All right, guys, welcome to another episode of the Tactical Empire. Today, I'm excited to introduce you to Royal Mortier, who is a personal friend of mine and the owner and founder of Pliris. And he's an Army veteran, a fellow Army veteran, and a father and husband as well. So we're going to dig into his story a little deeper and kind of see where this conversation goes. Welcome, Royal. Thanks for coming on.
Hey, thank you, sir. Thank you.
I appreciate you joining me today. Appreciate you. Yeah. We've known each other for a couple years now. And actually, you're part of our mastermind group, the Inner Circle, as well. So I really appreciate that. And I appreciate your belief in what we're doing with that group as well. So we were kind of connected originally through Arate and met in Mexico. Obviously, our family's connected down there, and then we've stayed in touch ever since. So, tell me what you're currently up to as far as like business and what Pliris does, and let's go down that road a little bit.
Yeah. So, Pliris is Greek for complete, and so I'm actually a structural engineer, and I was a home builder before I became a structural engineer, and when I was working as a home builder and then even through engineering school and then even post engineering school, I really saw that residential builders were very underserved, especially the builders that, build at volume, all aspects of residential builders. And a lot of reason why is there's a big separation between residential and commercial construction. And, you get architects that kind of more specialized in one and the other, but really you got a lot of engineers that just kind of took on whatever they could take on. And what you get is you don't get somebody that really fully understands in depth the design codes and the construction and everything like that. They try and basically understand all of it. And so what I built with Pliris is we are a structural engineering firm that is focused on residential builders. The other aspects that we put in there were items of, unfortunately, having when somebody graduates with an engineering degree, they still really don't know much. And so we're putting in programs to train up people from early on in their engineering schooling of getting them involved in the construction aspect. So they understand not just, hey, does this beam work? It's, hey, that beam works. Will it work there? Does it, is it cost effective? Is it a beam that's readily available by the builder? How does that correlate with other elements of the construction? Looking beyond it. And then just realizing, the biggest thing, unfortunately, a lot of engineers have lost sight of, homes were built before Simpson existed. And so many engineers just go, well, there's a load there. We're going to put a Simpson clip there. Or we're going to put this there. Do you need to do that? Or will a screw work? Or will some more nails work? Or can we figure out another way to get the load somewhere else? So we provide very efficient designs for our builders, and it's a win-win. They are working with an engineer that really cares about them.
Yeah.
And then what they're doing in the field. I mean, I care about their foundation guys and their framers as much as, and the bottom line as much as they do. And then in turn, we're able to build those relationships. And then personally, I still do developing as well. So, and then the other aspect of it is we've connected with house plan websites. And so now we actually have an entire portfolio of house plans to offer. And so these developers were able to basically take somebody that may be more common as spec builder of, hey, I've got my library of 20 plans and I just build them. I build each one 5 times a year and there's 100 houses. Mm-hmm. Well, we have 4,000 plans and we can pre-engineer. We have those pre-engineered. We're working on providing material takeoffs for all of those. We can VE every single one of them. And we're turning these around in a matter of a few weeks, where they're getting the full architectural and the structural plans in a matter of a couple of weeks. So it's something that's catching on. The builders we're working with really love it. And, I mean, that's how we've gone in 1.5 years time, from doing a few houses a month to now we're doing, last year we ended the year at averaging over 100 houses a month.
That's fascinating, man. That's awesome. Congratulations.
Thanks.
Sounds like a common sense approach to engineering, and
Yeah.
which is refreshing, to say the least. That's awesome, man. I know that you have a lot of hobbies outside of work and things that you're passionate about. And I know that you just this past weekend did a big charity fundraiser for Big Brothers Big Sisters.
Yeah.
And that's a organization that's near and dear to your heart. Could you tell us a little bit about what got you involved in Big Brothers and Big Sisters?
Yeah. So Big Brothers Big Sisters is an emotional topic for me, just because I wouldn't be here. I mean, I can tell you that. So I have a big brother. He's been in my life since I was 10. And now I'm 40, and we still talk probably weekly. And he's a very just amazing guy. I mean, he gave his time. He made time for me when, I mean, he was at a very difficult point in his life, and he still made time for me. And then it got really interesting, because then, I mean, that was when I was 10. Around when I was 11 or 12, my mom up and disappeared. I mean, basically dropped me and didn't hear from her. And so I kind of got bounced around family members and trying to take care of me. And he stayed with me. I ended up eventually getting settled in with my biological father, who really prior to then didn't know very well, hadn't had much time with, and kind of grew up from there. And unfortunately, with those that kind of things occurring, you get exposed to a lot of things. I grew up in Section 8 housing, was homeless for multiple years of my childhood, where we lived out of a car, and you get exposed to a lot of things. And those things, that they're adversities. At a young age, you either cave to them or you become more resilient to them. And I caved to them early on. I had the drug and alcohol run in my early 12, 13, 14 year, when I was in those 12, 13, 14 years old. But here's the thing, he stuck by me, and he just he didn't judge me. He didn't do any of that. He was just kind of there, like, hey, I'm here. You want to talk about stuff? You're kind of being a bonehead. And, and then it just kind of progressed from there. By about 16, I think I realized, hey, this isn't going to get me anywhere good in life. And it's going to keep me on the same path of a life that, I had to unfortunately experience as a childhood. And so he was always there. And so two big things really helped me through childhood and now into adulthood. And that was definitely the Big Brothers Big Sisters, and then wrestling, and now jiu-jitsu. So this last weekend we did a large jiu-jitsu fundraiser. We refer to them as a grapple-a-thon. So it's a 5-minute round followed by 1 minute rest, and you do that 20 times. So it works out to exactly 2 hours of just straight jiu-jitsu. And it was a good turnout. It was a good time. We earned almost $1,000 for Big Brothers Big Sisters. So everybody pays $20 to do it, and everybody just rolls until their body says enough is enough. So, and we had, the other awesome part about it, I have to say, is I've been a part of them in the past, and not a significant percentage of people make it the full 2 hours. It's exhausting. And I would say probably over half of the participants made it through the full 2 hours. And that's a lot to be said for. We did it in northern Idaho, man. That we had teenagers, we had, there were girls in there too. And I mean, they rocked it. So it was an awesome time, and we earned some cash for a really, really good cause.
That's amazing, man. Honestly, yeah. I mean, you're right. Thank you for sharing your story. That that is an incredible 20 rounds of 5-minute rounds. People don't even understand that, who have never done any sort of martial arts or wrestling or anything like that. And that's a significant output of effort. So
Yes.
the fact that half the people finished is incredible, because 3 rounds is enough in all settings, most settings.
Yeah, I mean, look at the UFC. You got, your typical fight is 3 5-minute rounds.
Yeah.
One on break. Your championship fights are 5. We did 20.
Yeah.
We did 20. And I mean, that's 2 hours of essentially trying to fight somebody off of you that's trying to hurt you. Jiu-jitsu is, they call it the gentle art, but
it's
there
it's
ain't
not
nothing gentle about somebody trying to choke you.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. And I'm fascinated with jiu-jitsu and have been since the military, where we trained with the Gracies, and they would come into Tacoma out of Vegas and train our Ranger battalion periodically. And the art of it and the science of it, the leverage and everything about it is just so artful and intriguing. And I became such a huge believer in it because I was just like mass on force, and it's negligible in jiu-jitsu. You can jiu-jitsu is the great equalizer. And so everybody asks what they should do for self-defense and things like that. And I'm a huge, having 3 daughters especially, I am a huge proponent of jiu-jitsu, especially for all people, but for women especially, because it really is, some of the tactics taught in it really help level the playing field, regardless of the size of your aggressor. And so you can use all of their weight and size against them, which is very unique to sports, especially combat sports. And so, yeah, man, that's awesome. I'm glad that you're involved with that. And I'm glad you had such a great experience. I think people neglect how important those figures can be in people's lives. And I mean, that's a fascinating story that he's remained with you, in contact with you for 30 plus years. I would say that you guys are quite an anomaly from a percentage standpoint of the people that actually stay in touch, but you'd know more about that than I would.
Yeah. Not something I researched, but I mean, here's the thing: when people think like, oh, I got to be a mentor. Well, here's the thing: like, he brought me along. And that's the easiest way I can put it.
Mm-hmm.
He brought me along once a month, once every other month. He's like, hey, I'm going out for pizza, let's go out and just hang out for a couple hours. Hey, I got to go down. I'm going to go hang with my buddy at his house. He just bought a new house, and we're going to go down there and we're going to grab some lunch. Do you want to just ride along and we can just talk the drive, hour-long drive down, have a talk, meet his friend, drive back. I mean, these are things I remember. And then it was like, hey, I want to go for a hike this weekend. You want to come? And then it's like, low income kid, not used to like, hey, let's go out and go for a hike, and I can still remember it. He sent me a collage. He framed me a collage and sent that to me last year for, I think for Christmas or year before. And there's a photo of me on the hike. Now, here's the thing. I weigh about as much now as I did when I was, 5th and 6th grade, so I was the poor fat kid in class. And, I was 205 pounds in 6th grade. I remember that. I don't remember stepping on a scale before then, but I probably was not far off before then either. So, so then I'm going out on this hike, and I hadn't put out that level of physical exertion ever. And, he talks about that all the time, where he's just like, we're stopping, and he's like, okay, like, good. Like, it's just pushing me, just that incremental pushing, what you need as a kid, that's you need that as a kid. And
right.
It coaches you through the adversity, and it's just there to like support you. But, when I say like, oh, hey, you can be a mentor to anybody. Like, I mean, like you said, it was once a month, once every other month, we were connecting for a couple of hours. And that's all it took. That's really all it took. And it was a massive, massive shift in my life. So,
Yeah, I think people overthink the impact that they can have with just a small effort. I mean, it doesn't have to be some massive gesture. Like you can improve people's lives with just the simplest things. And especially a young child's life who doesn't have a lot of people in their corner, like simply paying a little bit of attention to them or allowing them to tag along, like stuff like that, like you're referring to. And it can be a game changer. So if you guys are interested in Big Brothers, Big Sisters, I would say don't overthink it. Just do it. It's not a huge time investment. You can change people's lives for the better. And we need a lot more of that right now in the country, quite frankly. So the more success stories we can build, the better. So, man, that's awesome. You guys are in the process right now of moving from Washington State to Florida. Tell us a little bit about what kind of precipitated that move or led to you leaving Eastern Washington, excuse me, to relocate to sunny Florida.
I mean, it's hard to say that the times that what's occurring in the Northwest wasn't a major influence on that. But with that said, you know, one of the other aspects of Pliris is we're 100% mobile.
Yeah.
All my team works from their house. We don't have an office anymore. When I started, we had a small office and since got rid of that. We're on 100% mobile platform. I can hire people anywhere. They can work from anywhere. And, you know, that was a big thing for me, was to build out a platform that allowed that flexibility and that freedom for our team's lives. And, you know, so with that said, you know, we were planning on moving and doing these different things. And we were actually looking at northern Montana, up in the Whitefish area. And we shopped for land up there for probably 3 or 4 months. We even found a lot and we were going to be flying up there to go take a look at it. And it was kind of interesting. We had this trip planned for Florida, and it was a very interesting sequence of events that happened in a couple of weeks prior to that. We got COVID, so our trip to Montana got delayed. And we're like, well, we're gonna have to go after we go to Florida, because we're not gonna, like, we're sick. We had the full no taste, no smell kind of stuff going on. And, you know, as far as other symptoms, nothing really. It was just like, yeah, I got no taste, no smell. We've obviously got it. So we're like, okay, that delays it. And then, as you talked about, our Arate group and our inner circle group, literally back-to-back meetings, we're talking about building an environment that's conducive to what you want to be doing. And Ed Milet, who's pretty much a billionaire, he's not far off, and probably actually already is and just doesn't talk about it. But, you know, he even talked about how, hey, I would much rather sit around, watch Netflix, drink some tequila, and not really, you know, do things. And really, I could do that. But what does he do? Every day he wakes up bright and early, jumps in a cold tub or jumps in the ocean, it's cold, and goes and gets after it and does, you know, 18-hour days of getting after it. He doesn't need to do that, but he built an environment around him that was conducive to him to not be lazy. It was conducive to him to be a performer. And one of the things I realized, like, and we talked about that again, similar to that in our inner circle group. This is literally just before our trip to Florida. And then it was like, well, I started thinking about it. I'm like, you know, we could buy a place in Montana, but, you know, all right, I'm going to buy 5 acres and we're going to build a house. That's going to take like 2.5 years. We're still dealing with snow during the winter time. So there's 6 months out of the year that we're fighting with snow and the weather. But hey, there's those other, you know, okay, I like winter sports, but then I got to take care of the snow at my house and then still drive up to the mountain to then go enjoy the snow up on the mountain. And during the summertime, it's beautiful, but okay. Like, so I got a couple months out of the year where it's not raining, not snowy, not icy, and we can go and enjoy the water. And I was like, how really conducive is this to really the lifestyle I want? And then we went to Florida. We actually started up in Fairhope, Alabama, which is right across from Mobile. Spent a few days there, went down to Navarre Beach, spent a few days there, went down to Destin, and we're just like, man, like this is actually really nice here. And we started looking up schools, and we started looking up property and the property prices, and and we're just like, wow, this is actually kind of, this ain't bad. Like we could be buying a house for what we were looking to buy a lot for in Montana. And then we just was like, all right, let's see what's out there. And real estate agent showed us a few. Like we really didn't have a real estate agent lined up, anything. We just called one. We're like, hey, can you meet tomorrow and show us a few properties? Oh yeah, sure, gotcha. So they did that, and it was like, it's always the last one, right? It's, hey, this one's not quite on the market, but I was able to get you previewing and this and that. We walked in there and just like, yep, this one, just wrap it up. So now what kind of sucks is, we did a 1031 transfer, 1031 exchange. So we've got to buy it as an investment property. And then, so we're renting a house down there, got this investment property that's going to be going on probably as a vacation rental for a bit. And we got to jump through all those hoops. But the other part of it is, Washington hasn't exactly been the most, the easiest place to live, in my industry with residential construction and in building, no Democratic governor should ever utter the words affordable housing, because they literally say it and then, oh yeah, we need affordable housing. And then they pass legislation that does the exact opposite.
Yep. You're 100% right.
And it's like, so I'm doing developing and, in addition to supporting home builders. And if anything's going to tank a residential construction market in a region, it's the government being greedy. And literally last year, they passed resolutions that added almost $50,000 to the base cost of construction of a standard home. And now, even though the voters voted down a bill, they're now talking about pushing it through anyways. That's going to add almost another 50,000. And so, it's just, you're not conducive to it. So we're making some shifts. I know a lot of other real estate investors and developers that are making some shifts to go to states that are more builder friendly, more renter friendly. We're in a 6 million home deficit right now.
Yeah,
so.
Exactly. And that's where I was going with it. Like that's what people don't understand that have never studied the 2008, 2009 crash. They don't really understand the dynamics of the economics of what actually went on. And then also the recovery process, because builders took a bath during that time, and our rate of, they never came back. And part of the reason they never came back is because they were decimated from a financial standpoint, but also the main reason they didn't come back, I believe, is because a lot of the rigors and legislation that were put in place, right? Because like if you can no longer build a house, a single family home for under $200,000, like what is there's different markets and different terciles of price points in the housing market, of course, but builders generally focus on building one of those specific asset classes. Like if it's entry level homes, great. If it's mid-tier homes, great. If it's multi-million-dollar estates, great, whatever. But what never returned was that lower tier. And the reason is because it's cost prohibitive to get started with what you're even talking about. If you have to scratch a check for a permit for $50,000 to start the house in an area where stick-built homes are selling for 70, how in the world are you going to compete in that market? Like, it's impossible.
Right.
And the only people losing are the consumers. And people wonder why we've got the market that we've got going right now. And it's simple supply and demand. If you watch the curve from the last 12 years, It's just or 14 years. It's a market correction. And you're watching that we've never met the demand. We've never even come close to meeting the demand. I mean, we're at like 1992, 94 rates for building, and our population has exploded for one. And we just, there's no houses. And that's the bottom line. So I'm not surprised by the housing prices. I mean, are they affected by inflation? Absolutely they are. Are people running to fucking park their money in something that's actually a real tangible asset that you can touch? Absolutely they are. Is Blackstone buying all this shit at 20% above market to drive up the whole country? Now, I don't think they're driving up the whole country on purpose. They're just buying shit to park their money in assets too. But is it affecting Joe Schmo, the consumer on Main Street? Yes, 100%.
Right. And when people are like, oh, well, Blackstone's buying and Open Doors buying, and they're buying above market, and they're buying, they're buying 100 houses in an area, and then they're buying a few that are 10%, 15% above market because it affects the appraisal of all the other ones. Okay, well, that affects that nucleus. That's it. House prices are based on a variety of things, but one of the main things they're based off of is replacement costs. Mm-hmm. So if I put in government legislation that increased the cost of construction to replace that house if something was to happen to it, and it increased the cost of construction $50,000, well, guess what? That's not affecting a nucleus. That's affecting everywhere.
Yep.
Everywhere. So, and it doesn't have an ROI that's effective. And, and then a lot of the prior things that Washington did was definitely for the energy, trying to bring down the energy use because our populace is growing at what it is. Mm-hmm. Well, okay, over the last 25, 30 years, the US energy use has actually gone down, not up. So we're making positive movement in there, but then there's also logical things that we can be doing. And one of the big things that we've seen a lot of these agencies do is not so much the building envelope and the insulating and everything like that, which, is a passive system that basically it's just there. The home is better insulated. It's got these better systems. That's just there. That's a passive system. Well, now they're starting to get into the active systems where they're pushing for much more higher energy efficient equipment. Well, that higher energy efficient equipment has a service life that is much, much less. Mm-hmm. So, okay, yes, I had this unit that maybe burned at 85 to 87% efficiency, but it lasted 20, 25 years. Now they're regulating, you've got to have units that are burning at like 95 to 98% efficiency. But by the way, after about 2 years, stuff starts breaking. And after about 5 years, it's throw it out and start over. Mm-hmm. That's about what we're getting at for service life with these things. Now, over time, R&D will start to catch up and so on and so forth. But if we don't hit on the bigger thing, which is our clean energy production, it doesn't matter what you regulate to the consumer with the energy, because we're going to surpass our energy, the energy use, no matter what. I don't care how much you regulate it. So it's, and
you haven't even started with the fucking waste.
Right.
Like that shit drives me crazy. Every legislation they pass causes 5 times the amount of previous waste. And now I'm just like, well, who's green here? Like right. I'm filling a landfill. Like,
right.
We can go on this topic all day.
The statistic is in the by 2035, almost half of the non-combustible, so not stuff that can't break down in the landfill, is going to be directly related to solar energy. Half. Like that, and yet we're still pushing, like that's how I can get, for standard house in Washington, we have to get 6 energy credits. Well, I can get 3 energy credits just by putting solar panels on the roof. There's half my energy credits. So we're pushing things towards that way, but then not looking at the end ramifications.
It's short-sighted. It's the same exact way with those wind farms. We have them all over in South Texas, and like Man, when you see those things driving down the road and you see how massive they are, it's one thing to see them off in the distance when you look at them when they're built, but you see a single blade on an entire semi and a wide load and the 3 cops it takes to drive it down the interstate. And that's a single blade. Right. And I know for a fact, all of those are made out of fiberglass. They're simply burying them on farms down here to get it. They're pouring dirt over them because they don't know how to get rid of them right now. And they're just covering them up so they're not a huge eyesore for everybody, to remind them how much waste we're creating. So we're burying them in fields for right now, with the intent that once we figure out how we're going to dispose of them, we're going to dig them all back up and then dispose of them the right way. So it's just mind-boggling when you think about.
It's like what they've done with the nuclear dunnage. I mean, I've got Hanford not far from here, where you've got literally just massive underground tanks of nuclear dunnage that they're basically just, now they're to a point where they're just building bigger, stronger tanks to then transfer the material to and restore it, as they're continuing to work through the equipment of what it takes to handle
dispose
it.
of it. Yeah.
But here's an interesting statistic, and I gotta research it some more, because I don't like just spouting statistics just to spout it. But it was somebody stated that there have been more deaths as a direct result of solar power than there have ever been from nuclear power. And so, but nuclear power, again, when something happens, it's in a nucleus. It's in a consolidated area. With solar power, it's far spread out. So it's like, oh, a death here, a death there, a death there, a death there. Nobody really talks about it. Oh, we have a nuclear meltdown in this area. Now this region is shut off. Well, that's that small region. And, this isn't my promo for nuclear, but the fact is our technology to manage nuclear, and then what your ROI is for what you get from nuclear, is actually really, really high. The technology now the technological advancements that we have really bring things under control way, way better. And, we can monitor things much better at a much better state. When we talk about, oh, this nuclear plant had a meltdown. Well, that was a nuclear plant that was constructed 60, 70, 80 years ago, when a computer took up the size of a house. We don't have that now. Like, we have additional means and methods for monitoring and control and other stuff like that. And there still are nuclear plants that are still active in the US. They're not gone. And it's just a matter of, unfortunately, when we construct them, I think it was South Carolina or North Carolina tried constructing one. And they just having the historical intelligence to actually construct one, unfortunately, was just not there. And so they ended up spending billions of dollars and only got a few feet out of the ground, and then just realized, like, they were already at budget and they were barely out of the ground. So, unfortunately, if we wait too long, we're basically going to be relearning how to build a nuclear plant. But,
right.
Anyways.
Let's circle back on the topic. That one thing that I hit on that I was fascinated by is that you're exactly right when you talk about, like, what we were discussing prior to you guys making the move, deciding against Montana and moving to Florida. But, like, I mean, one thing we discuss in our mastermind in the inner circle is, like, I'm a huge believer that you can literally design whatever life you want if you're willing to, like, dig deep enough on what you want, right? Because you can do anything and just be reactive to your situation and allow life to kind of happen to you. But I think what you're discussing is, like, being super intentional on actually kind of pulling yourself back a little bit to determine what you guys really wanted from a quality of life standpoint. And then you aggressively went after it and just, like, made it happen. And I think that all too often people are too fearful and scared of the unknown to kind of do that. And knowing you and working with you over the last year or so, I know for a fact that you did this by design. You structured your company so that it's virtual, so that people could work everywhere, so that you could have freedom of movement, freedom of location. And then which made that aggressive move to Florida a reality, truly. And I think that like, was there fear and apprehension in your household throughout that process at all? Or how'd that play out with your family?
Luckily I have a family that's not I'm going to say a very brave family. We look at fear and we go, okay, cool. What do we need to do? Like that's exactly, it's been my wife's stance. It's been my stance of just, yeah, that's nice. This is something that needs to happen. Oh, you're fearful. Okay. Oh, there's going to be work involved. Yeah. You know, what's going to be worse is sitting around and just enduring. That's going to be way worse than getting over the fear, having some bravery and putting in the work. So like I say, in our household, fear is the one F word you can't say. So
and I think that's so cool, because like a lot of people are stuck in their conventional ways and what society tells them that they should be doing. Like, you go to school, you're in your neighborhood, you're part of this like collective environment, which is all fine. But I think our family is very much similar in that I think we live a very non-conventional life in that, like, we literally do anything we want to do whenever we want to do it. And if something's not working for us, we really analyze it and say, what is not working? And then how do we change it? How do we go about changing it? Because literally, you don't have to be stuck on anything that makes you or your family uncomfortable or unhappy or miserable ever. Like, if you're unhappy in your situation, it is 100% your fault, and you're choosing every single day to stay in that misery.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying things can get fixed overnight or you can snap your fingers and make things different, but every situation is changeable. And so, like, I think most people, where they miss the mark, and you can give me your thoughts on what you think this is, but I think the reason most people live kind of mundane, sedated lives that they're probably not like level 10 happy with is just because they're in fear is probably the wrong word, because we've got hard men listening to this show that are like, I'm not fucking scared of anything. But like, the fear of change is frightening. And
right.
The fear of, I would say the number one thing is trusting yourself, that if you pull the ripcord and like it's all on you, and you don't have that W-2 paycheck, you don't have that corporate job, you don't have like everything you've known to be safety and security anymore, and it's all reliant on you and your ability to produce, like, does that give you pause? And
yeah,
it does. I mean, I think that's human nature. Like, I'm scared of shit all the time, but I'm also not willing to be miserable for like one day.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And I mean, that's, and then it's I break life up into a lot of 4-letter words, but fear, risk, pain, and work are the big ones. And, you can't, everything's going to have a risk for it. But everything's going to have a risk, but it's a matter of the pain and the work. And, are you afraid of that risk? Are you fearful of that risk? Or something can be low risk, you're just fearful of it, period, because maybe it's painful and there's a high risk tolerance. So you got to balance those main 4. And then the other one you got to realize is flow. Life is going to continue to flow around you. Life doesn't happen to you. You happen. You happen. So there's a flow to it. So you either figure out your flow, and the other big thing, like, in our household, there's only really 2 ways to make daddy upset: lie or complain. That's it. You broke something, big deal. It's stuff. I don't care. You get in a fight with your brother, yeah, that happens. Let's talk about it. Let's figure those things out. You come to me and you lie to me about something, or you complain about something that you have the capability to fix, that's an issue. Now, daddy's not happy because A, you don't lie to me. Lying never gets you anywhere. And then B, complaining is just a negative grenade to everybody that's around you. One of the things I remember, and maybe can't remember the specific thing that occurred, but we had a good sized group there in Mexico, and we were hanging out and doing some stuff. And then somebody just random just kind of came up to our group, and we're standing around. We're in Mexico, we're drinking. Somebody just came up, and somebody random that I don't think was part of our group at all, and they started complaining about something. And you would have thought somebody had dropped a grenade, because we dispersed. You went this way, I went that way. Kirsten went with you, Marcus and his wife. Like, we just were like, we were having a good conversation. We're positive, all this stuff. And you come in and you drop a complaint, boom, we out. Like, that was what it was. And, that's what it does to people. So, if you can learn if you can understand that life is going to continue to flow around you, you decide at the rate that you're going to flow. Mm-hmm. And then you figure out a way to balance that fear, risk, pain, and work to make the life that you want. Those are the big key things.
I think it's learning how to control your mind and the way that you react to situations, because what you're talking about is, some people complain all the time for attention because that's what they're used to. But man, the circles you got to run in to get attention for complaining are fucking terrible circles, man. And you're exactly right. The reason we ran from that situation is because you like, anytime an energy vampire is in the room, man, you don't want to be nearby them. Right. And, people often spend too much time manifesting the what ifs and being fearful of like everything that could go wrong. When if you take the step forward and just do it, like half the shit that you spent time worrying about, it would never even possibly come to fruition anyway. So it's better just to swing the bat and figure out if you're going to get a home run or a single or strike out and move on.
Exactly. So. Yeah, it's always interesting to me. And when somebody puts a dollar sign to their fear, like, I think it's the guy that founded GoBundance, and I'm drawing a blank on his name.
Oh yeah.
He was basically, his comment is, if you have a problem and money is the solution, you don't have a problem. That's what it is. Because everybody has money, everybody has capital. Like, once you're in the business world, you just look at it and you're like, okay, well, I need money to do this. I don't have the money. Well, there's all these people that are willing to lend me money. I just need to figure out how much I'm willing to bleed, how much I'm willing to pay for the money they're willing to give me, and what is my ROI on that? And I get really, and a lot of this, I guess, is the environment I was raised in as a kid, Section 8 housing, homelessness, stuff like that, where you just have these people around you that everything is somebody else's fault. That literally was the environment of all low income housing I grew up in. Everything was a complaint about this. Everything was somebody else's fault. They took no accountability. And, you blamed it on this person. You blamed it on the government. You blamed it on this thing that happened to you 10 years ago. And then you can look at other people and you go, well, they had all those exact same things happening to them, and they still figure out a way to succeed. And you talk to those people, it's like, well, what did they do different? You won't hear a complaint, a negative, a nothing come out of their face, because they just go, all right, here's the problem. Cool. What do we got to do? Like, and that's it. Like, there's no gossip. There's none of that. And that's a mindset thing. That's something where that stuff comes at you and you just slap it out of your way and move forward.
I'm big on raising my kids that way. When you talk about you're not allowing complaining, when our kids start complaining, I immediately go to gratitude and make them say 3 things they're grateful for.
Yeah. And
anytime they're complaining, so after they do their 3 things they're grateful for, which they usually bitch and moan about having to do that, because I'm ignoring entirely what they're whining about.
Right.
And but then we reframe it as an opportunity. So like when you talk about how you wire your brain to be resilient against these situations, like that's the way you have to view them. And like when you're getting smacked with unfortunate situations, like when you talk about the flow of life, I mean, if you liken it to a river with raging rapid water, right? Like you can sit there and wallow in your pity, but that water's still running. And so you should probably look up and figure out a solution, and then also be grateful for the opportunity that you've been given, because it's simply opening you up for a larger horizon is the way I look at things. I mean, I've had some really big kick in the balls in the last 12 to 15 months. And, and I had a tendency to kind of have a moment of kind of self-pity and been like, damn, man, I can't believe this is happening to me. Do I have the chops for this? But then once I was able to kind of take a second step back and then reframe the opportunity, I'm like, man, this is my springboard to growth. Like the reason that this is all happening is because I need to learn these lessons in order to go to 50 million or 100 million. And like, I'm getting taught these lessons now while they feel painful, right? And they may be 6-figure lessons. Like they're 6-figure lessons so they don't turn into 8-figure lessons down the road. And so the ability to humble yourself and take that humility as a learning opportunity, I think, is vitally important. And so I'm trying to teach my kids that, like, now when there's no stakes in the game. Like, well, it's super important to them right now, but like, you know how it is.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and you can start with small things. Like when my kids come up and they're like, I'm hungry. Okay. Well, what's a different way we could solve? How could we ask that differently? You just complained. You said, I'm hungry. What's the solution? You want food. Okay.
What do we have to eat?
Right. That's the question to ask. Or, hey, may I have this, please? There we go. That goes in your belly. That feeds you. Telling me you're hungry, that's complaining. Let's talk about what the solution is. And then let's be grateful of the fact that we
have food.
We live in a country where you can walk to a pantry or walk to a store or drive to a store, heck, even get on your phone and have food, boom, right in the house. And then B, like we're in a position where we always have food in the house.
Right. Yep.
You know, and that's a gratitude thing. And that's, you know, it is kind of difficult, you know, for me sometimes, because like, you know, when the kids complain, I mean, they're 4 and 6, they're going to complain. But when I have to look at them and just be like, no, you don't have any idea. Like you don't. And I try and talk to them about it. And it's like, you guys, I talk to them about, you know, what daddy's done, where dad came from. So they have an understanding. And I, you know, we'll drive around parts of town that aren't the nicest and go, see, this is the difference. This is what, you know, this is the thing. It's perspective without projection, though, because I understand where you're coming from. Like my childhood was a little rough as well. I mean, I had some unfortunate times for sure, but like, that's not what my kids, like, I don't need to beat them over the head with my fucking story. Like my 7 and 9-year-old love fucking sushi and they bitch about it all the time. They want sushi all the time. You ask them what they want, that's what they want. I didn't have sushi until I was like 30 years old. I'm like, you guys, like, my wife and I laugh about it all the time because the first time I ever had sushi, Kirsten took me to sushi. And so I never even knew what it was. Right. And so it's just complete. And I'm grateful that I'm raising them in an environment where they don't have to worry about all the shit I had to worry about when I was growing up. And so it really is perspective without projection, in my opinion, with the way that I'm trying to raise them. Like I'm trying to give them that kind of perspective and make them good, like grateful children, but they really don't have a lot to worry about. The things they complain about are extremely insignificant things. Yeah. I mean, everybody in America, quite frankly, dude, all classes of people have it pretty damn good in America. Yeah. And when you look worldwide. Oh yeah.
So
yeah, I mean, the poverty level of the world is about essentially what some people right above the poverty level in the US make in a month.
Right.
Let's put that into perspective. So, my brother-in-law is from South Africa, and I've had the opportunity to go there. My aunt and uncle have been missionaries in multiple areas across the world. They're in Nepal currently. Before that, they were in Zambia. They were in, I think, Libya.
Yep.
They were even involved in a terrorist attack there. All these different aspects. And, it is a situation if you don't realize what you have.
Yep.
And, when you're driving in South Africa and you have literally a line of people that are using the side of the freeway to get to their commune, essentially, which is literally just metal corrugated roofing tilted up to make an 8x8 house for you and your kids with a dirt floor. And that's in a row of 20 to 30. And then they put another row of 20 to 30. And then they use the corrugated metal roofing to come across the top to create a covered central corridor.
Yep.
And you'll have hundreds of people living in that. Hundreds.
Mm-hmm.
And they literally walk miles every morning and miles every night. And they eat as a community because they pool everything together to have food, or they, ship, and everything's a stew. What are we having tonight? Stew. Okay. It's whatever remnants of garden and meat you got, and you put it in a pot, and that's what you have. That's what it is. And that's day to day for them. That's every day for them. And it is a different mindset. And one of these days I do want to eventually take my kids so they can actually experience it. Luckily I've got their uncle is from there, and his family was actually, they were very, very successful in South Africa, but it's a situation of that's what they saw every day. They get full exposure to it. And then my cousins were actually raised in South Africa, and so they had full exposure to it. So it is a situation of you get exposed to it and you can start to appreciate it, but you have to have that exposure, and you also have to have that adversity, and a lot of people, they're extremely fearful of adversity. They avoid it like the plague, and that stinks, because eventually when you don't take that adversity on voluntarily, when it's forced on you, you are not resilient enough to withstand it.
Yep. And we need to be cognizant of that, because we're all fucking very, very blessed to live in the United States of America. And, but that doesn't mean that it can maintain without that sense of resiliency and some introspection on our parts of how we're raising our kids in the next generation and how we're behaving personally and carrying ourselves. So, Royal, I appreciate you coming on, man. How can people find you?
Yeah, our website is www.pliris.co, not .com, .co. That's our main website. And then from there, you can look at our plan library at plirisplans.com.
Spell Pliris for us.
Pliris. And
okay,
so,
we'll throw it in the show notes as well.
Yeah, and then Instagram, Facebook personally, and with Pliris as well. So.
All right. Well, we'll throw your links in there in the show notes if you want to hook up with Royal, or you want him. If you're a builder out there that needs an engineer to design some of the homes, I think you heard what they have to offer. They're cutting edge company for sure. So thanks, man. I appreciate it. Tell your family hello for us, and we'll see you in Florida soon, I'm sure.
Absolutely.
All right, brother. Take care.
Thank you for listening to the show. Make sure you subscribe, leave a review, and share with a friend. We'll see you on the next episode of the Tactical Empire.